What is the true soul of a nation? Is it found in the unyielding stone of its ancient fortresses, or in the graceful arches of its imperial palaces? For Russia, a country often perceived as a singular, monolithic entity, the answer is not one, but two. It exists as a profound duality, a conversation held across 700 kilometers between two rival giants. One, a capital of formidable power and relentless modernity. The other, a former capital of sublime poetry and European ambition. This journey is not simply a tour of cities. It is an exploration into the very heart of this contradiction, an attempt to understand the dual identity of a nation through the opposing spirits of its two greatest creations, Moscow and St. Petersburg. Which city truly represents the Russian soul? Perhaps the question itself is flawed. Perhaps Russia's soul is not a place, but the very tension that exists between them. To understand modern Russia is to understand this fundamental polarity. It is not merely a geographic or political distinction, it is the nation's core philosophical dialogue, etched into its very landscape. Think of it as a country with two hearts, beating to entirely different rhythms, yet circulating the same lifeblood. Moscow is the nation's stubborn, ancient heart, rooted deep in the Slavic soil. It has always been the center of gravity, a fortress of power that has weathered invasions, fires, and revolutions, each time rising stronger, more defiant. Its identity is forged in resilience and control, a symbol of a centralized state that looks inward for its strength. In stark contrast, St. Petersburg is the nation's ambitious, western-facing mind. It wasn't born from the land, it was willed into existence from a swamp, a deliberate act of creation by a Tsar who dreamt of a different future for his people. It was designed to be a window, a portal through which Russia could gaze upon Europe and Europe could gaze back. Its spirit is one of art, intellectualism, and a deep, sometimes painful, self-awareness. How does this constant conversation between two cities, one representing tradition and the other aspiration, define the spirit of its people? It creates a beautiful, complex friction, a dynamic that fuels Russia's art, its politics, and its unending quest for identity. To feel this difference is to stand in the heart of each city. Stand near Moscow's Kremlin as the sun sets. You feel the immense weight of 1,000 years of history pressing down. The low, steady hum of a nation's engine. The air itself seems thick with power and consequence. Then, transport yourself to a bridge over a St. Petersburg canal at dawn. The feeling is utterly different. The air is light, carrying the whisper of poetry and revolution. The reflection of pastel palaces shimmers on the water, not as a show of force, but as an elegant, melancholic dream. These are not just cities, they are living arguments, posed in stone and steel, about what Russia was, what it is, and what it aspires to be. To truly comprehend this present-day dialogue, we must first travel back in time, to the very origins of their rivalry. For in the stories of their birth, we find the seeds of their destiny. Every city has an origin story, a foundational myth that whispers through its streets for centuries. But rarely do these stories represent two opposing visions for a single nation's destiny. For Russia, the divergence began at the very moment of conception. One city grew organically from the earth, a wooden fort that slowly hardened into a stone heart. Its purpose, always singular, to consolidate, to protect, to rule from the center. Its story is one of inward-looking strength. The other was an act of sheer will, a defiant imposition upon an unwilling landscape. It was not built to protect what was, but to create what could be. Its story is one of outward-looking ambition. This is not just a difference in history. It is the fundamental schism in the Russian identity. A battle between the fortress and the horizon, between the unshakable power of the heartland and the seductive promise of the world beyond. To understand these two cities is to understand the two paths Russia has always considered taking. Moscow's identity is forged in fire and survival. For over 850 years, it has been the nation's unblinking center of gravity. It is more than a city, it is an axiom of Russian existence. The Kremlin, its formidable core, is not merely a political headquarters, but the physical embodiment of a deeply ingrained national psyche. This is the idea of the Third Rome, the belief that Moscow is the last bastion of true faith and imperial might. This identity was hardened by centuries of existential threats, from the Mongol hordes to Napoleon's invading army. With each trial, Moscow did not just rebuild, it reinforced its ideology. Its heritage is one of resilience born from suspicion, a deep-seated belief that power is the only true currency and that the world outside its walls is a force to be managed, not embraced. This history has cultivated a spirit that is pragmatic, powerful, and deeply conscious of its own enduring importance. It is the story of the state itself, eternal and absolute. If Moscow is the story of the state, St. Petersburg is the story of the individual's dream. Founded in 1703 by Peter the Great, its very existence was a revolutionary act, a direct challenge to Moscow's old ways. Peter didn't just want a new capital. He wanted a new kind of Russian. He envisioned a city that would serve as a cultural laboratory, a place where European Enlightenment, art, and science could be grafted onto the Russian soul. He imported architects from Italy and France, engineers from Germany, and philosophers from across the continent. St. Petersburg thus became the cradle of the Russian intelligentsia. It was here that Pushkin wrote the blueprint for modern Russian literature, where Dostoevsky plumbed the depths of the human condition, and where the first sparks of revolution were kindled. Its heritage is not one of wielding power, but of questioning it. Its identity is woven from elegance, intellectualism, and a tragic, beautiful sense of being a magnificent experiment, a city of breathtaking genius, forever slightly at odds with the vast, ancient land it was meant to lead. To truly grasp this, one must look at the moments that define them. Look at the walls of the Moscow Kremlin. They are more than defensive structures, they are a profound statement of separation. For centuries, they have demarcated the world of the rulers from the world of the ruled, the sacred inner sanctum of power from the profane chaos of the outside. To be inside the Kremlin is to be at the controls of the empire, to feel the immense, centralized force that has guided Russia's destiny. The identity of Moscow is encapsulated in this fortress, impenetrable, self-contained, and absolute in its authority. Now, consider a different kind of fortress, a fortress of the human spirit. During the Second World War, St. Petersburg, then known as Leningrad, endured a siege that lasted nearly 900 days. It was an ordeal of unimaginable horror. Cut off from the world, its people faced starvation, constant bombardment, and the brutal cold. Yet they did not break. In the darkest days of winter, with no food and no heat, the city's radio orchestra performed Shostakovich's Leningrad Symphony, broadcasting it across the front lines as an act of sublime defiance. This was the city's defining moment. It proved that this artificial, European creation possessed a soul as tough and resilient as any ancient fortress. Its identity was not found in walls of stone, but in the unbreakable will of its people to preserve beauty and dignity in the face of annihilation. And so, we have two histories, two legacies. One city's identity is built upon the exercise of power, the other's is forged in the endurance of suffering. One tells the story of an unshakable state, the other, the story of an unconquerable spirit. This profound difference in their souls is not just a matter of history. It is written on their very faces, carved into the stones of their streets, and reflected in the silhouettes they cast against the sky. If the soul of a city is forged in its history, then its face is surely revealed in its architecture. A city's layout, its streets, its squares, its buildings, is a physical language, speaking volumes about its values and ambitions. Do its roads radiate from a single, powerful center, or do they flow like arteries connecting it to the world? Does it reach for the sky with towers of glass and steel, or does it stretch along the water with elegant, uniform facades? The architectural clash between Moscow and St. Petersburg is perhaps the most visceral expression of their rivalry. One is a sprawling, chaotic metropolis defined by layers of history, a city that has grown and sprawled like a great, ancient tree. The other is a meticulously planned masterpiece, a city designed with the precision of a blueprint, where every vista feels like a composed painting. To walk through their streets is to read two profoundly different philosophies of urban life, one celebrating organic power, the other, structured beauty. Moscow's urban fabric is a testament to its tumultuous, layered history. It is a city defined by its rings. From the Kremlin at its core, concentric circles of boulevards and highways radiate outwards, like ripples from a stone dropped in a pond centuries ago. This very layout reinforces its identity as the undeniable center. Its architecture is a dizzying, often discordant, blend of eras. Onion, domed cathedrals from the time of Ivan the Terrible stand shoulder to shoulder with the monumental, almost intimidating, Stalinist skyscrapers known as the Seven Sisters, which were designed to project Soviet power. And now, piercing the skyline is the gleaming, futuristic district of Moscow City, a bold declaration of 21st century capitalist ambition. Moscow is not a city that erases its past, it simply builds over it, creating a landscape that is dynamic, powerful, and sometimes brutally incoherent. It is a landlocked giant, its connection to the world defined by railways and airports, its lifeblood flowing through vast, multi-lane highways. The Moskva River provides a gentle curve through its heart, but the city's primary relationship is with the land. The immense, sprawling continent it commands. In St. Petersburg, the relationship is not with the land, but with the water. This is the Venice of the North, a city built on a delta of over 40 islands, stitched together by nearly 500 bridges. Its lifeblood is not the highway, but the canal. The Neva River and its countless offshoots dictate the city's entire logic. Its architecture reflects the singular vision of its creator. Unlike Moscow's chaotic layers, St. Petersburg is a city of stunning uniformity and classical grace. Peter the Great enforced strict building codes, mandating a harmonious skyline of Baroque and neoclassical palaces, their pastel facades reflected in the dark waters below. Walking along the Nevsky Prospect, the city's Grand Central Avenue is like stepping into an imperial ballroom. There is a sense of order, of elegance, of a single artistic idea executed on a breathtaking scale. The city doesn't reach for the sky in the way Moscow does. It stretches horizontally, embracing the vast, low sky of the north. This architectural harmony creates a profoundly different atmosphere, one that is less about raw power and more about refined, aesthetic contemplation. But to truly understand the architectural soul of these cities, one must go underground. During the Soviet era, The metro system was conceived as more than just transportation. It was to be a network of subterranean palaces for the people. Here, in the depths, the ideological differences between the two cities find a remarkable expression. The Moscow Metro is an exhibition of sheer, unapologetic grandeur. Stations like Komsomolskaya or Kayevskaya are cathedrals of marble, bronze, and mosaic adorned with chandeliers and heroic statues. They are designed to overwhelm, to impress upon the daily commuter the immense power and glory of the state they serve. It is a journey through an underground museum of political ideology. The St. Petersburg Metro, while equally beautiful, often possesses a more restrained and intricate elegance. Stations like Avtovo, with its glass-adorned columns, or Admiralteyskaya, one of the deepest in the world, feel less like grand halls of state and more like sublime, hidden ballrooms. The artistry is often more decorative, more focused on aesthetic detail than on overt ideological messaging. It is a system that feels perfectly in tune with the city above it. A network that celebrates artistry and engineering prowess, a testament to the city's enduring identity as a capital of culture. In both cases, the journey itself becomes the destination, a daily reminder of the grand visions that built these cities, both above and below the ground. From the soaring skyscrapers to the subterranean palaces, the very bones of these cities tell a story of two different Russias. One is a city of vertical power, a landscape of rings and radials, constantly reinventing itself upon its ancient foundations. The other is a city of horizontal grace, a symphony of water and stone, forever faithful to its original, elegant design. But how does living within these vastly different architectural landscapes shape the daily lives, the costs, and the very character of the people who call them home? A city's history and architecture are not merely a backdrop for life, they are an active force, shaping the rhythm of the streets, the aspirations of its inhabitants, and even the contents of their wallets. The grand ideological clash between Moscow and St. Petersburg doesn't just exist in textbooks and on skylines, it permeates the very fabric of daily existence. It dictates the pace of a morning commute, the price of an evening meal, and the subtle yet distinct vibe that hangs in the air. While both cities are epicenters of modern Russian life, attracting the ambitious and the talented from across a vast nation, the experience of living within them is profoundly different. One is a relentless machine of commerce and ambition, demanding speed and resilience. The other is a grand stage of culture and contemplation, encouraging a more measured artistic pace. To understand the people of these cities, we must first understand the distinct worlds they navigate every day. At first glance, the urban Russian lifestyle appears remarkably consistent across both cities. They are magnets for the nation's youth, vibrant hubs where education, opportunity, and social life converge. A walk through either city center reveals a common thread: a population that is impeccably dressed, exuding a striking self-confidence. This is often linked to the global fascination with the Slavic aesthetic, a fact of which the people themselves seem well aware. Social life is paramount. Cafes are full, parks are crowded, and it's rare to see anyone walking alone. There's a palpable energy, a collective desire to live life fully and visibly. The ubiquitous smartphone is not just a tool for communication, but a lens for constant self-documentation, a way of curating one's life against the stunning urban backdrop. However, beneath this shared surface of dynamism lies a fundamental difference in the rhythm of life. Moscow's pulse is a relentless, driving beat. It is the undisputed financial and political heart of the nation, And its lifestyle reflects this reality. Life here is transactional, fast-paced, and intensely competitive. Careers are forged, deals are made, and fortunes are won and lost in a city that never seems to sleep. The atmosphere is charged with an electric ambition. The vibe is one of purpose and forward momentum. Time is a commodity, and efficiency is the highest virtue. This relentless pace comes at a steep price. Moscow is consistently ranked among the world's most expensive cities. A modest apartment can command a rent that rivals those in London or New York, requiring a salary that is far beyond the national average. To live comfortably in Moscow is to participate in this high-stakes game, to embrace its demanding rhythm as the price of admission to the nation's center of power. The rhythm of St. Petersburg is more of a lyrical waltz than a driving beat. While it is also a major economic center, its identity is inextricably linked to its status as Russia's cultural capital. The lifestyle here feels less transactional and more experiential. There is a greater emphasis on leisure, art, and intellectual pursuits. People seem to linger longer in cafes, to stroll more slowly along the canals, to engage in conversations that are not just about business, but about literature, history, and ideas. The vibe is more bohemian, more romantic, and tinged with a beautiful, thoughtful melancholy. While still an expensive city by Russian standards, the financial pressure feels slightly less acute than in Moscow. The ultimate prize here is not just wealth, but cultural capital, a life rich in experiences, surrounded by beauty and history. It is a city that invites you to be, not just to do. This difference in lifestyle is perfectly encapsulated in the evening hours. As dusk falls in Moscow, the city's energy transforms. The streets around areas like Malaya Bronnaya or the Patriarch's Ponds come alive with the roar of supercars. Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and high-end Mercedes Benzes cruise the boulevards, a dazzling and overt display of wealth. The nightlife is slick, expensive, and exclusive. It is a scene driven by status, where being seen in the right place, with the right people, is a critical part of the city's social currency. The Muscovite evening is a performance of success, a celebration of having made it in the country's most competitive arena. Now, imagine an evening in St. Petersburg, particularly during the magical phenomenon of the White Nights. From May to July, the sun barely sets, bathing the city in an ethereal, perpetual twilight. The streets do not empty. Instead, they fill with a different kind of energy. Crowds gather along the Neva embankment, not to watch supercars, but to witness the majestic raising of the bridges, a nightly ritual that allows ships to pass. Young musicians play classical pieces on street corners, their melodies drifting over the water. People sit for hours, talking, laughing, and simply soaking in the otherworldly light. The atmosphere is not one of competitive display, but of collective wonder. The St. Petersburg evening is a celebration of a unique, shared experience, a moment of communal poetry that money cannot buy. It is a lifestyle that values moments of beauty over displays of wealth, a perfect reflection of the city's artistic soul. So we see two distinct ways of life, born from the same nation but nurtured in different worlds. One city demands ambition and rewards it with power and wealth. The other invites contemplation and rewards it with beauty and inspiration. One is a city for the driven careerist, the other for the thoughtful romantic. But ultimately, which city is more livable? Which offers a better quality of life? The answer, of course, is deeply personal. To make a choice, one must decide what they truly seek. We began this journey with a question. What is the true soul of Russia? We've walked through their histories, stood beneath their skies, and felt the distinct rhythms of their streets. We've seen that the answer is not a single location, but a living, breathing dialogue between two monumental ideas. The choice between Moscow and St. Petersburg is not merely a choice of residence, it is a choice of philosophy, a decision about what kind of life one wishes to lead. It is the final, personal chapter in this national story. Let us distill this epic rivalry into its purest essence. Moscow is the city of the declarative sentence. It is a statement of fact, powerful, direct, and unambiguous. It represents the Russia of relentless drive, of vertical ambition, of a future forged in the crucible of global commerce and political strength. To choose Moscow is to choose the fast lane. It is for those who thrive on competition, who see opportunity in chaos, and who wish to be at the very epicenter of a nation in motion. It is a city that asks, "What can you achieve?" It promises a life of consequence, a place at the table where the destiny of a continent is being decided. The challenges are immense. The cost, the pace, the pressure. But for those who succeed, the rewards are equally monumental. It is the beating, pragmatic heart of the nation. St. Petersburg, in contrast, is the city of the rhetorical question. It is a meditation on what could be elegant, introspective, and endlessly romantic. It represents the Russia of artistic soul, of horizontal grace, of a past that continues to inform and enrich the present. To choose St. Petersburg is to choose a life of intention and observation. It is for those who find inspiration in beauty, who value intellectual and cultural wealth as highly as financial capital, and who seek a connection to the grand, poetic narrative of Russian history. It is a city that asks, "What do you feel?" It promises a life of depth, a daily existence surrounded by a beauty so profound it can feel like living inside a work of art. The challenges are real. The melancholic weather, a less frantic economy, but the reward is a quality of life measured in moments of sublime inspiration. It is the nation's contemplative mind. So, which city is for you? Imagine your ideal day. Is it a morning of high-stakes meetings in a gleaming skyscraper, followed by an evening of cocktails in a chic, exclusive restaurant, feeling the pulse of a global megacity? If so, Moscow is calling your name. Or is it a morning spent wandering through the halls of the Hermitage, followed by an evening stroll along a moonlit canal, discussing art and literature as a string quartet plays nearby? If so, your soul belongs to St. Petersburg. In the end, perhaps the greatest truth is that Russia needs both. A nation cannot survive on power alone, nor can it thrive on dreams alone. The fortress needs its window, the mind needs its heart. Moscow and St. Petersburg are not truly rivals, they are two essential halves of a single, complex, and deeply fascinating whole. Together, they create the beautiful, enduring paradox that is Russia. The question, then, is not which city is better, but which half of the Russian soul speaks to yours. This is a conversation we want to continue with you. Let us know in the comments below, are you Team Moscow or Team St. Petersburg? We truly value reading your perspectives. If this exploration has sparked your curiosity, sharing that spark by liking and sharing this video helps our community of fellow travelers grow. And to ensure you join us on our next journey, as we venture from the urban heart of Russia to its wild, untamed wilderness, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell. You won't want to miss where we're going next. Thank you for watching.